Welcome to Barrier Breakers, a podcast celebrating resilience and triumph over adversities. Expect raw, honest conversations filled with practical advice and life lessons. Now on to today's episode. Welcome back to episode 5 of Barrier Breakers.
Barrier Breakers, episode 5.
Today we'll be talking about episode 4.
Episode 4.
So Anton's story.
Yes.
Incredible.
I was going to say previously on Barrier Breakers.
Previously on Barrier Breakers. Like soap opera style.
Pull the In the Heat of the Night.
Yes. Don't even take me down the rabbit hole. I love In the Heat of the Night. Oh my gosh.
Or Big Valley.
Yes.
My grandfather used to love Gunsmoke and Big Valley. It was just like, that's all I knew growing up. I didn't even know.
Just going to his room. School package.
Literally, he had a 4.5-inch TV that looked like something from, one of the wars. And yeah, we just watch it on this little black and white TV. So I just know the Big Valley.
Ours was In Heat of the Night, Murder, She Wrote.
Murder, She Wrote. Diagnosis Murder?
Yeah. Yes. And then High Five. And what was the other one? Oh, The Young and the Restless was a soap opera my grandmother loved.
We were Days of Our Lives.
Okay, that's fine. You can still sit with us. But going back to Anton. Just incredible. So we wanted to kind of take that all in.
It all in. It was a lot to take in.
He miraculously condensed all of that history and story into 30 plus minutes when we could have sat down and talked with him for hours.
We didn't even really get into the path, how we got here. It was just like I came over. I was in South Africa. No, I'm not.
Well, he did share with me, of course, where he came from was a third world country.
Sure.
And not being around his father a lot. Father was a great guy. He worked, did what he needed to do for the family. But with that came...
He was absent.
It's like catch-22 type,
We have a conversation a lot in my house. Being present is not... Being in the room is not the same as being present.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to be absent.
Mm-hmm. You have to be where your mind and intention has to be where your feet are. Yeah. So I throw my phone a lot because MJ sees it.
It's so prominent that this generation is like born with tablets in their hand.
Oh, I know. And my son, man. And I'm like, oh,
no, like what?
1.5, dude. They know how to work it.
E equals MC squared. It's like they're born knowing how to do it.
Mm-hmm. But if you take it from them, they'll be behind their peers. And if they're in public, it's just like, it's a balancing act.
Well,
I know. It is very much a balancing act.
I think we're on week 5 or 6 of just tablet reduction.
Good.
Just go play in the dirt.
Yeah.
Right? Just go
eat it.
Put your feet in the dirt, use your imagination. And I won't get into a lot of it. But I don't like emulating behaviors. It's so weird to me that my kids love watching other kids play with things. Mm-hmm. This is our new toy. This is what it does. Here are the action figures. Do you want to see it in a clay video? And they're like, yes, what we live for.
Hey, different generation. I know. It's so weird.
I'm like, why don't you want to play with it?
I'm sure our parents thought the same thing. I was raised by boomers. So we know we're millennials. And so I'm pretty sure our parents thought a lot of the same things when we were growing up. Like, you're on AOL Net chat room. What is this? Like, what's going on?
Oh my gosh. I remember the first time we got internet. It took probably 16 hours on a compact 486 with a disk drive to load AOL. It's like, you're online. We've missed 17 calls.
I was going to say, no calls are coming in at that time.
We missed 17 calls, but by George, we see the little yellow man in the moon or whatever he was doing. I still don't know what he was doing, but yeah. Oh, our screen names. That was it's so weird. The screen names, we just pick up random. I lived in Texas at the time, Houston, and I'd go to Six Flags and I'd just see a bunch of people and I'd be like, get their screen names and then go home, add them, and then just be chatting to these people.
I didn't do that.
Oh, I'm scared to do that now.
Oh, I would never do that. Now I'm making my Facebook more personal again. I got into the habit of, they're in the industry that I'm in, adjacent. I'll add them. Now I'm like, absolutely not. You don't get to see my son.
How many friends do I have in common, or are any of them Bitcoin advisors?
I know. Yeah. Like, no. I did a great cleansing of my friends list here recently.
And I noticed I was still on there. Yay!
Yay! And I added your wife.
Gifts.
Yes.
They're little gifts. Tis the season.
So back to Anton, who was, did not have his father around a lot.
Didn't have his father.
And they did not grow up. Again, they were third world country. There was no ways to connect.
There's no ways to connect.
Via social media.
I remember having a pager. There was no way to connect.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so he told us a story about him coming over here. Mm-hmm. He had a brother, I believe, that came over ahead of him. And he jumped to the most paramount thing in his life was, he's working, he's doing well, he's at a company, having accomplishments.
Yeah.
And yet he was still missing a foundation there. There wasn't a firm foundation. And I felt like part of that, from what he shared with us about his father, because he made sure we understood his father was lacking there, was that because his dad had to work to provide for the family, there was no true foundation set of here's how you go out, you thrive, you overcome adversity as a human because life is going to be hard. Mm-hmm. It was more so of we're always in survival mode. And I understand that completely. Being in survival mode all of last year and a lot of this year. I understand what survival mode is like.
Just feel like you're just existing. You're not living. It's just existing. It's like make sure that the kids have what they have, and we've got food, and we shower sometimes.
Brushed our teeth most days. You're like, we're doing the things we need to do to get by, and that's okay. And so for a lot of people, and
it's okay for a season.
It's okay for a season. And I think this is especially true for people that have health scares, cancer survivors like Anton and I, where it's really a wake-up call.
Yeah.
To, what's important, who's important, how are we going to get past this? And when he got his diagnosis of having brain cancer, learning that his firm foundation he turned to was Jesus Christ.
And he wasn't even shook.
Yeah.
Like he was just like, oh.
That's another, okay.
That's a good, that's a level of faith. I have a sister, and she's just been through a lot as well. Mm-hmm. And she's unwavering. Unwavering. It's like, it's going to be great. It's going to be fine. Lord's going to take care of it.
What do we got to do? What's next? Okay.
In one aspect, I understand that completely. Mm-hmm. And another aspect, I'm like, where's the practical application?
Well, speaking of experience.
How do we get from point A to point B? Where are the steps that we're taking in order to heal, right?
Mm-hmm. I think that, again, we did not have, unfortunately, a lot of time allotted to sit down with Anton. He really left from here and went to his brand new business that he was opening, being the sole worker right now. And so I think a lot of that is just life experiences. Mm-hmm. I hate that we didn't have enough time to where he kind of grazed over his childhood, because I feel like in those he could come back, right?
He can come back.
I feel like in those formative years in our early 20s, which I happily skipped over as well, something had to have happened. We all have this moment in life that something happens and we have to make a choice. Are we going to succumb to it, or are we going to lean on to this invisible rope, which is faith, that we've had all these years? And how strong is that faith? I mentioned in episode 2 where April, before I got diagnosed, I told a friend of mine that I'm pretty fearless. And I meant that when I said it.
Yeah.
And so getting a diagnosis in September, yes, I understood the gravity of it. I had an aunt that passed away from breast cancer when I was younger. I've had friends I've known that have gone into remission and since passed away after it's come back. And yet there's something about that hope, that anchor that has always been in my life, that has, similar to Anton, having a tumultuous childhood and knowing that, but God, did not matter what happened. But God is still good, and yet there's always light in darkness.
Well, that's growing up. That's all I've ever known. Since I was 6 years old. It's all I ever known.
So what's the beauty in having to actually apply? That's the beauty in it. You're like, okay, Gentry and Britany, we know you. The Lord's like, I know you believe this way, but let me test you.
So head knowledge is different from heart knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
You can know something but not have understanding of it. And that's I was talking to someone this morning, and it's like, a lot of people know what the Bible says, but they have no clue what it's saying.
Mm-hmm.
And there's it's not that there's gray areas in the Bible. It's just that and I believe the Bible wholeheartedly, but there's things in there that I don't think we have an accurate grasp on, because it doesn't make sense when rules or quote unquote standards look differently now than there's a saying that says, I can do all things through scripture taken out of context. And you can do that. So sometimes you don't have that grasp on what you need to, but then on the things that you do, like it's all you've ever known, but it's head knowledge to heart knowledge. Like, you know it in your head, but if you don't experience in your heart, then you'll never do it with your hands, right?
Yeah.
That's where the rubber meets the road, or whatever. It's, it's good to talk and, growing up.
Like, oh, you were in practice, but here's the game now.
Yeah. Growing up is shouting about everything under the Tuscan sun. Mm-hmm. I know I say under the Tuscan sun, but I guess that's the phrase of the day. Yeah. Amen. So, but you're shouting about everything, and then it's like, but comes a point in time in your life, and you're like, where I've just been like in a season, like, why are we so afraid of silence? Mm-hmm. Why is this for, really? And because in seasons it's great when you're on top of the mountain, but like when you're in a valley, and you trip and you fall in a 10-foot hole, and there's no one around to hear you to get out, it's a lot different when you go through those experiences. And I think that being in the valleys makes you appreciate the mountaintops a lot more.
Absolutely.
I know it does. Mm-hmm. I know it does me.
I love that Anton was very clear that when he was in the valley, he did his best to bring his wife to the mountaintop with him, because she was also not a believer.
Well, she was in the valley. He was on them. Like, he was hiking up the mountain. He just left her behind.
Yeah.
She's like, woe is me. You're never going to be. He's like, I'm going to be fine.
Yes.
And then like going back and getting the x-ray of his brain, and they're like, they took part of his brain out, they took a tumor out. And then like they go and did an x-ray. I don't know how long it was.
It was 9 years later, because they thought
9 years later.
It came back, right?
Yeah.
And he told us a story about the hummingbird circling around his head, making a halo.
Yep.
And so after that happens, in between the time of, hey, we believe the tumor's back, the hummingbird going around his head 3 times, getting another scan, and they're like, your brain is whole.
It's whole.
His wife doesn't believe him.
And then he's like, I've told you for 9 years. Can't you
Yes. Can't you see?
Climb this rope. Mm-hmm. I'm at the top.
Yeah. And so he went back, and that's the beauty in it, to where we talk about testimonies a lot. Everybody has a story. We all have our different tales and things that have shaped us. But sharing that testimony and bringing somebody into belief with you.
Sure.
To knowing that, again, as long as you're not, like I said, killing children, hurting old ladies, just a terrible person. Yeah. I don't care what that firm foundation is, but the glory in showing this to your spouse.
Sure.
I believe in being equally yoked.
Absolutely.
So showing this to your spouse and making them a believer now.
Yep. Yeah. It's revealing that. And I think some people, they believe without seeing. That's what faith literally is. And then some people, they have to see it to believe it.
Yeah.
And there's 2 sides to everything. Like, everything has a positive and a negative side. And it's really cool. So he was the positive side. She was the negative side. They're still the same person. They're still the same thing. They're still the same coin. But getting to share that, he believed it without seeing it, and she had to see it to believe it.
Yeah.
It doesn't make anyone less important.
Absolutely.
That's the cool thing. Like, it doesn't make anyone less important. It doesn't make anything less impactful. It doesn't change the realness or the reality of what they went through.
At the same time.
At the same time was what they went through. It's just everybody's different. And so the aspect of it, but I think it's really cool that there is not an antagonist and a protagonist, or not like a skeptic and an optimist, but there's a positive and a negative side to everything. And it's not negative in a bad way. It just could be negative in a cautious way, which is actually productive. Cautious is it's prudent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's prudent to be cautious, to have caution. And there's lots of times in my life where I was just like,
red flag.
One of these things just doesn't belong here.
Yeah.
And I would say probably every time that I've felt that, it was warranted.
That's discernment. And we talked about this, something that I had never prayed for until over 90 days now.
Mm-hmm.
But yet I felt something was very off in my life.
Yeah.
And being around people who wanted me to be quiet about my faith and what I leaned on to get through my journey with cancer.
Yeah.
And removing my Bible and my study book from my office. Just taking parts away, chunking away at my foundation that I had built that I thought was so solid. And then in the midst of that, realizing there's gaping holes in here and now something feels uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And, just praying for that discernment about what is going on. And then once the light was shed on it, you have to act. That's the good thing about his wife. It's like, okay, now you have seen.
You have seen. It's like, wow, maybe you're not crazy.
Mm-hmm. You see, it takes seeing the miracles, having a light shown on them for some folks.
But that's what it is. I mean, faith comes by hearing. Hearing other people's testimonies builds faith because they can put themselves in the narrative of other people's stories and know that it's going to be okay because someone else has gotten through it. Mm-hmm. And especially when, there's cliches, sayings in churchianity circles. He put you through it so you can get someone else through it. Mm-hmm. But there is beauty in that. Like if you've been through something on the other side of it, that was one thing going through the tests and trials of my life in my mid-20s. After I was in my late 20s, I was completely, great. Like I was wonderful. And a friend of mine was going through the same thing, a similar situation, not like cookie cutter, like
mm-hmm.
It wasn't copy and pasted my situation, but it was the similar life circumstances. And he called and he was just broken. And I was like, it's all right. I'm on the other side. You can do it. And I'm here to make sure that you get through it. And that's, you need me. I need you. We need each other.
Yeah.
And I think but that's how we were designed.
Mm-hmm.
That's how life was designed. But going back to Anton and his wife, I'm going to be honest, that would be hard for me. If I was completely here.
Yes.
And my better half was like here on the spectrum of belief.
Yeah.
It's crazy for me. That would be really difficult, especially when it comes to, praying for healing. When it comes, what I'm saying? Like, I'm just going to,
yeah. Well, I love that you shared
I haven't not been transparent, right? So
mm-hmm.
when it comes from like praying for healing, that was one thing I was talking to the same person about. I was like, if you believe one thing and they believe something else, or if your child gets hurt and you're praying that they get better and they don't believe that they can, how does that work?
Yeah.
Right?
I went through that because my husband and I do believe different. I wouldn't say differently. I think that there is levels to it. He's not so much as Anton's wife that was, there was no belief.
Sure.
It was, I grew up, we talked about it. I grew up a good Baptist church going girl. I knew the Lord since I was 4. I was baptized at 5.
Yep.
Read my Bible. And so been through enough stuff to know the Lord is real for me. And so, my husband didn't have that. And so when I was diagnosed, I remember last Thanksgiving, we're going around the table stating what we're grateful for.
Mm-hmm. You made me cry.
I said I was thankful. I was in the middle of chemo, right? I said I was thankful for the Lord and how good he is in this season. My husband sitting to my left said he's thankful for the advancements in medicine. That's just Well, yes. Okay. I will say
Correct.
I am very grateful for the investments and where
Sure.
we are and we have in medicine. And yet I'm going to always attribute that to the Lord put those people on this earth and gave them those talents for a reason. We all have our talents. They're using their God-given talents, right?
Yes.
And so, yeah, I do have a marriage where we are not there. And yet I remember when I first met my in-laws, because my father-in-law was not as strong a believer either until he met his now wife.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I mean, I got him talking about intentional gift giving. One year I got him a study Bible. A study journal because he takes time every day to study the Bible and make notes. And now if Lamar is not taking time to be with the Lord and very intentional about his talks and walk with God, and, they always tell me, of all the two things they always try to, say, hey, push Aaron to do this. That's the most important thing. Just how you are in your faith, it's going to rub off. And so now talking to my husband, I do notice a change in his heart. Yeah. Very subtle things.
Sure.
But I love that because just like Anton's wife, while he was not that far off, from disbelief,
sure,
it was not as strong. And so I see a switch happening there that makes me very excited.
Absolutely.
and him saying that once I do settle on a church and MJ and I go, that he will go. Granted, it cannot be before, the 1:00 football, 8 hours of uninterrupted football on, what is that, Red Zone. But he will come and be with his family. Yeah. And so small steps.
Yeah.
And him seeing his wife, and he knows that I attribute, while yes, medicine is great. Absolutely. Great. He knows I attribute a lot of how I am and how I respond and my strength comes from.
But that's because it's real.
Yeah.
That's because it's real to you. People who think that they have an experience just haven't seen where they were, what they experienced. And a lot of the realness comes with, it's your testimony, right? Mm-hmm. It's like no one can take it away from you. Like no one can tell you that he didn't do something that he did. And when it's real for you, it's real. And when you share it and other people are impacted by it and curiosity begins to brew, that is when you know that the truth can stand on its own 2 feet, right?
Yeah. Oh, he watched a movie that I did not realize was the story of Moses. It's a Disney. It was not Disney.
Prince of Egypt?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we watched it like 3 times. The first time I was in the middle of working, and so I walked away. Him and MJ were watching it. The second time I kind of caught on. Then the third time I was like, let's watch it. And I sat down and I was like, what is this? It seems very familiar. It's like, it's a story of Moses.
It's a story of Moses.
And I'm like, oh, he know who Moses is. Praise the Lord.
Come on. You're being subliminally baptized before you even know.
So it's just those little things that lets me know, hey, we're going to be okay.
It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. And because you've been through things and it's made you stronger, like people are going to wonder where that strength comes from. Mm-hmm. People are going to ask where that strength comes from, and sharing your story and being completely transparent about it, whether it makes you, and that was one thing when I first got together with my wife. I didn't even get together when I first met my wife. Mm-hmm. We were in Bible ministry college or school together, and there was like the first or second week of school, and we all went to the restaurant that was in the parking lot of the school, and I was like, all right, it's all on the table. Like I talked for 2.5 hours just like sharing my story, because someone made the mistake of going, how'd you get here? And I'm not going to be like, I drove, Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like I was like, well, you got to listen to this, and like all the things that lined up, and the story and the outline and the haiku or the limerick or whatever it was, and 2.5 years later. And I left that place and I was all like, it's on the table. Like if they want to pursue or, being my friend, they can't say that I didn't tell you, like I didn't tell the whole truth. So, and a lot of them did. A lot of them did. Still talk to some of them today. Friends with a lot of them here. They came during the school year, after the school year, while we were still there. But yeah, I was just like, here it is. And one of the cool things is we both have very different stories. But when we got together, I was like, I have nothing for you. Like literally. Yeah. I was like, I can't offer you anything. I don't have a steady job. I'm an itinerant worship minister. Like I drive 580 miles on the weekends to go play at a church in Texas, to go play at church in Texas. I'd leave at 4 a.m. on Friday. I'd drive to rehearsal. I'd get to rehearsal. I'd go spend the night. I'd drive there. I'd get there on Friday, hang out with some friends or do something, sleep, and then spend the night, go to rehearsal on Saturday, and then Sunday after church, like I'd get up at 6 or whatever, go to church, go to call, and then I'd go grab something to eat and drive 8 hours back to Memphis, and I'd stay the night in Collierville with my sister and her husband, and then I'd get up at 6 o'clock and I'd drive to Alabama to be at to get there before everyone did, to set up chairs and stuff. It's just what I did. But I was like, I have nothing to offer you. My car's about to be repossessed. Like I don't have anything. And she's like, that's okay, because one day we'll have everything.
Oh,
and literally, it made me cry. But 'tis the season. It's another news. It's Wednesday. So, but she's like, we both have baggage. She's like, I'm just really thankful that the Lord put you in my path and me in your path so we can unpack it together. And she's never once held my past against me. She's never once tried to use it as leverage. She loves me like Jesus does. And she told me that. She's like, I don't see broken when I look at you. I was like, well, I feel broken. She's like, I don't see broken when I look at you. I don't see damaged goods. I don't see that you're too far gone. She's like, I see strength. And I'm like, how?
Oh, I love that. My husband never used my past against me either. Even if that's when you know it's right. Yeah, I posted something recently about a month ago about Malcolm and how I'm very intentional in making sure that he has a happy household and 2 happy parents, and he sees a healthy marriage, because I did not come from that.
Yeah.
And so Aaron went on there, and all of my friends were gushing over it and whatever. But he went on there and said, even though you didn't come from that, doesn't matter. He's a happy kid. He has a great life. We're great parents. Like, just constantly edifying and reminding me who I am.
Yep.
Because I realize I am strong. I do have those moments of, am I enough?
Of course.
And I do. I dated guys who remind me, oh, your dad wasn't around. You have daddy issues. I mean, Did
you cut them?
Look,
I'm sorry. It's 2023. Did you cancel them?
I know. Oh, they're canceled, blocked, done, absolutely trashed. And so, and I have friends who guys said the same kind of crap to them. Oh, or he's a mama's boy, or, just equating stuff to, and I'm like, can we just not take people for who they are? And like you said, love like Jesus. Yes, we're all flawed human beings. And yet all of our experiences have made us strong in one way or another.
Yeah. There's a lot. I was talking to someone this morning. Why do we limit the amount of love that we give someone with conditions? Like, why do we put conditions on it? Like I talked about that in my episode. I will not love people with conditions, because I've been conditionally loved, and I hate it. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy or the worst person in existence. It's like, because it just makes everything feel superficial.
Yeah.
Right? If I meet your conditions, I get the benefits of your life or blessings or whatever it is. But when I no longer meet them, not only do I not get anything, but you take everything back. That's warped.
Yeah. Now I'm the worst person ever, because I no longer fit into this box you put me in.
Yeah. If they can't clone you, they'll disown you.
Well, I love that Anton made a point to get his wife on the mountaintop with him.
And the fact that he was like, don't get it twisted. This is how it happened. Jesus did this for me. And I love that, because Jesus has done everything for me.
Same here, friend.
He's done everything for me. We were talking about it, I guess, again, it was just like, we can't find somebody who hasn't been impacted. And like when they share their story, they're just like we found the Lord.
Yeah, like who did it? Oh, God did it. Okay.
God did it. Okay.
Amen.
He did it. He did it. It doesn't mean, I was talking about this morning. It's like, why do we categorize, or why do we remove love from people that have, that are still people, just because they have questions? And I think that's one thing that we need to do better at, I guess, people, is just because they have questions that maybe don't align with the answers that you have on your own journey, it doesn't make them any less of a person, and it doesn't mean that they're devoid of love or unworthy of it anymore. And it's like, you can still, and it was like, what would Jesus do? And I was like, I think he would eat with them. I read the Bible and I've looked at it and I've studied it, and I'm going like, I think that he would still eat with these people. I think that he would be there and not here. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't be with piety. Like he wouldn't surround himself with piety. He would surround himself with brokenness. Mm-hmm. And so it's just a lot of people find him in brokenness because he's willing to be there and eat a meal with them, like in their brokenness. And one of the things we're talking about our church earlier is when I lost my dad and went through the season of trauma that I did, and it was very fresh wounds. And there was a lot of people that were just like, "Are you still on that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sorry. It doesn't like fit.
It's a forever thing.
I'm sorry it inconveniences you to watch me cry or to listen to me, recall and hurt. I really don't mean to inconvenience you." But our pastor is the first one that was like, "You're not okay, and it's okay. If you want to call and yell, call and yell. Mm-hmm. If you want to sit in silence, I'll sit with you." And that did something. And, we live right now, we're in the process of relocating to Tennessee, but we live in Georgia, and I drive between 400 and 650 miles a week. But 200 of that is to go to church, because it's the first person who didn't, use cliches like, "Oh, it's nighttime, but joy's going to come in the morning. You're just going to wake up and be great." And that's wonderful. And I believe that. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I can do all things through a scripture taken out of context.
Yeah.
You got to look in with Job, and people sitting with people in sackcloth and ashes is a lost art. Mm-hmm. And I think that people like Anton and people like you, we honor that, and we hurt with people that are hurting, and we love on people that need it, and we include people that deserve it. And I think that's what it's all about. I think we're designed for connection, but that's why, like, we drive 200 miles a week. My kids are like, "Does everyone drive an hour and 45
you told
minutes?"
Me that. You're like, yes.
I said, I was telling that, and our worship pastor was like, we so do. We leave here, we get here really quickly, and we leave, and we just drive around until we get here at the same time. But that's why. That's why we feel included, we feel seen, we feel heard, and we feel wanted. Mm-hmm. And he was like, it didn't matter. His love and his care doesn't have conditions on it. Yeah. And that means something to me. Mm-hmm. And it means something for my family. That's what I want to bring my kids up in. That's what I want my wife to experience. And our community is here. And we are prayerfully getting here in the next 6 months.
Yeah. And so very similar to Anton and his son, giving your children, your family, a firm foundation on which to stand upon. Yeah. When, Anton's son, 27, dropped dead in front of his wife and 2 young kids.
I can't fathom that.
And when he's telling us his story, I believed him. There was not a tear in his eye. He told me from the first moment I met him that, the Lord gave him his son for 27 years of his life, and now God needed him back. And I'm sure he grieves his son. Yeah. And yet, because of his foundation and the foundation that his son built with his wife and kids.
Sure.
I mean, I look at them and they're still doing life. They're not overcome with the sadness. It was his only son. Yeah. And when I think about that, because I'll only be able to have one biological child. I could not fathom the loss. And yet just hearing him speak, his strength was just so apparent when we talked to him.
Yeah, his strength, his demeanor, the way he carried himself, the way he talked about it, it was just like there was no negativity in his aura, whatever you want to call it.
It was just like, I tell people this and they're like, "That's kind of mean, Britt." I say a lot, it is what it is sometimes. Well, the saying I say, it is what it is. And people will be like just dumbfounded. And I'm like, literally, it happened. It is what it is. So we overcome that. We move forward, right? And people are just like, no, we don't understand. It is what it is, Patricia. It happened.
It happened.
But to see him it literally, it's like, it's matter of fact, this is what happened. God is still good.
He's still good. At the end of the day, he's still good.
And now he's opening, well, he did. Grand opening is actually beginning of this year. Opened up a new business here locally. Has an amazing contract opportunity with another country, the only one in the U.S. Him and his wife still have great plans for their lives.
We love Anton. We love his story.
Yeah. So this is what Barrier Breakers is all about.
He was a really good first interview.
Mm-hmm.
And really excited to, like I said, get to know everyone, get to know their stories, get to know what makes them think the way they do, what makes them the person that they are, and like what's behind it, like what's behind the why. Mm-hmm. That's what I know. That's what I want to know. What's behind the why? Why do you operate like that, Cindy?
Yeah. Who are you?
Why you do that, George?
Yeah. Yes. And like we said before, we cannot deny or hide the fact that a lot of our rootedness, our firm foundations are the same.
It's so there. And if it's not there after you've been through something, it's like, well, this is the only thing that I can hold on to. It's just stories of people, going into their lost relative's house or being separated for a time and like going in and like finding that Bible in the piano bench and it's like holding on to it, and it's like she must have held on to it for a reason. Like, let's figure out and see what it is, and like get to go back and like through all the stories and read all the things that the Lord had done. Yes. So it's good.
It is good.
It's good.
And we thank you guys for coming on this intentional journey of exploration with us.
Yeah, and conversation.
Just getting to know all of your tales. We look forward to sharing more of Tales of Triumph this season.
Thoughts, and we'll see you next week.